Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 10 of Nerd Herders from Over a Beer. I'm Rich.
I'm Nick.
And today we're going to talk about what we've been up to. This is going to be kind of a special, what we've been up to.
What we've been up to, a.k.a.
Jessica Jones.
Yes. So obviously Netflix had they've had a lot of original shows come out in the last couple of months, but they had a really high profile one. Their second Marvel series, Jessica Jones. So, what is Jessica Jones?
Still learning that. I'm 5 episodes in. I think you're 4 episodes in right now. And the idea is she's a private eye in Hell's Kitchen, right? Isn't that what it's called? I keep forgetting all this shit. Hell's Kitchen, who has some superhuman abilities that we're slowly kind of learning as the series goes on. And I like that. I like that we don't necessarily know everything from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so this is the second series after Daredevil. They're all going to be connected, all the Netflix shows. I mean, it is technically connected with the movies and S.H.I.E.L.D., but minimal.
It's gonna be its own, like, Netflix Marvel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Daredevil, I think right from episode 1 they talked a lot about the Battle of New York.
And there's a few mentions.
There's a few mentions, but it really wasn't until this past episode that I watched, episode 4, where they make a reference to like the Avengers as a team. But yeah, I mean, so this is based on obviously a character that has existed in Marvel Comics for a long time, but more specifically a run of comics called Alias, aka Jessica Jones.
And you've read some of them.
Yeah, I've read the first 2 trades, so the first 12 issues. And in that, it's very similar. She's a private eye. She was a member of the Avengers and has given up that life of being a superhero and just wants to just be her. And I would say in that, like, I'm 12 issues in, and I didn't even know she had super strength. I mean, you kind of find out that she's very, very strong early on in Jessica Jones, the show. But overall, it is following a lot of how the character acts, even though the main villain has, so far, 12 issues in, not been part of that comic. But anyway, so that's the setup of the show. What are your thoughts on the show so far, quality-wise?
I really like it. I actually like it more than Daredevil so far. Some people might disagree. I know that was a hugely, popular show, and everyone kind of flipped their shit for it. But I like it. I don't love it as much as some people, but I think it's superior than Daredevil. In a lot of ways, it's just because I'm not as familiar with her character as I was with Daredevil going into it, which makes it a little bit more interesting. But I just kind of like the style, and it's even darker, if you can believe it, than Daredevil is. Yeah,
not as violent, but it goes to darker places because. We don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but you find out very early on the villain of this season, played by David Tennant, who was a doctor of Doctor Who. If you're into that, I'm not. No, neither of us are. But his power, he's a character from the comics, the Purple Man. He's not called that at any point that I've seen yet in the show. But in the comics, he's the Purple Man. He has the power of basically whatever he tells somebody to do, they do. And so they kind of took that to a really dark place. Like in the comics, it's like, I'm going to make Captain America run up and down, but in this, it's like, what could this guy really do? I mean, he could make people become just like sex slaves. He could make people kill their families, stuff like that. And it gets dark.
Yeah,
and it deals also with the fallout of what it would be knowing that somebody took you out of your own control and stuff like that. And it's really interesting. I like the show a lot. I think the performance, specifically from Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones, is really good. She was on Breaking Bad. Definitely made...
She's done a lot of TV and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, she made an impression on Breaking Bad, for sure. But, I mean, still, this is really her, like, coming out party, I think, to the mainstream. I'm impressed. Is it as good as Daredevil? I mean, right now it's on kind of the same level. It's kind of like, wow, Marvel on Netflix is a really great model. That's how I feel so far. We'll see over the span of the season how I feel about one versus the other. It's a little early to say. I think early on in Daredevil, there were some really standout sequences, the hallway fight and stuff that I don't know if they've necessarily, from a filmmaking perspective, matched that.
Sure.
But I think from a character development standpoint, I am definitely more invested in it early on than I was Daredevil early on from that. So it's kind of like one versus the other.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So Luke Cage is also set up in this show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it's a cameo. He's on the show.
Yeah.
And he's going to have his own show next year. And then they're going to be doing Iron Fist. We get Daredevil Season 2. And then the plan is for The Defenders, which is going to be all of these Netflix shows.
Wasn't Punisher in there somewhere too now?
Punisher, well, he's on Daredevil Season 2.
Oh, okay.
He's like
gotcha.
a villain. And then all of these shows are going to kind of combine into an Avengers-like season called The Defenders with all of these people. I'm not sure, initially, I don't know how Jessica Jones fits into that team.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. And I would hate, in the comics, the way that I was familiar with Jessica Jones before I read Jessica Jones was she was just the wife of a character who I won't name, who lived in Avengers Mansion, still didn't want to be a superhero, just has the kid. It's kind of a stay-at-home mom in Avengers Mansion. I don't want that to be what happens to her. I don't want her to be marginalized like that because she is a strong female character. But can you really see her like fighting like a supervillain with Daredevil and Luke Cage and Iron Fist? Like, I don't know if it really makes sense yet.
Well, they like you said, they established Luke Cage in Jessica Jones, and I like their dynamic, and I hope he has just as much presence in the series as he's had so far. So you said he's definitely not a cameo. I mean, he really has a prominent kind of part in those first few episodes. And I like that, and I hope it continues and where that storyline goes. So you're already kind of setting up the whole connection with everybody. I mean, I can only because so far everyone's been really grounded. They as over the top some of Daredevil stuff is, he's still a very kind of real grounded character, and they both shows have a very similar feel and style to them.
They do,
which is something that I like. It feels very separate from the Marvel, like the Marvel movie universe has it's a more kind of lighter, quirky little tone, and both this and Daredevil have a much darker, just kind of gritty, just look to them even. So I like that it's setting up, just the style as a whole, separating it from Avengers. So I feel like when they do Defenders, as long as they can keep it as kind of grounded and as it is, it could work. It just depends on who. I don't know if they name the supervillain or who they're going to go after.
We don't know any of that. We also, the big thing that has not been announced. I mean, this is still maybe 2 years down the line, but we don't know who the showrunner will be.
It's true.
I mean, Stephen S. DeKnight, who was the showrunner of Daredevil Season 1, has moved on. There's going to be a new showrunner of that show for Season 2. And then, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but Melissa, it's like Rosenberg or something, is the showrunner of Jessica Jones, and then there's somebody else for Luke Cage, presumably somebody else for, is it going to be one of those people, or are they going to bring in somebody entirely different?
Yeah.
Should it be one of those people? Should it ideally be all of those people kind of working together? I don't know, and again, how does Jessica Jones fit into that team dynamic? We'll see. She's an investigator, so maybe she'll just be there'll be a mystery to it, and she's trying to, I don't know how it works. But at the same time, I think at one point people were like, how's an Avengers movie going to work? Like when we saw Nick Fury, and so far at the end of Iron Man, so far with the Netflix shows, they haven't given us real reason to doubt it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you look at those first few, Marvel films, and they were so drastically different. Thor, and it's like, how does this going to work? How's everyone going to fit together?
But they definitely got the right person in Joss Whedon in that first movie to tie it all together. So hopefully, I think that's the biggest part. They have the cast in place. I like Mike Coulter as Luke Cage, and then obviously the other two is the casting so far works.
Yeah,
we'll see who the villain is, or maybe it'll be villains. Maybe it'll be Kingpin and David Tennant and this
that was interesting. We talked about this a little bit off camera about Kingpin and Daredevil. I'm like, oh, Vincent D'Onofrio is so great as Kingpin and great in that role. I'd love to see him come back, and over the end of season 2, and you're like, oh, he's not in season 2. So maybe they could bring him, him back for.
He may or may not be in season 2. I don't know.
But he hasn't been.
Right.
From what we've seen, he has not been confirmed.
Right. He's definitely not going to be in it like he was in season 1.
Just from what they said.
So yeah, maybe bring him back. I could see, something speculating on Daredevil season 2, like at the very end, Kingpin is reintroduced.
And we still don't know how this ends.
Nope.
So who knows where that.
I mean, if David Tennant makes it through the season, are we going to see more of him? You would have to think it's possible.
I mean, he's been, from what little I've seen of him so far, he's been great.
He's definitely left an impression, and I have not seen the two characters actually interact in anything that wasn't a flashback. So, Jessica Jones. So a recommendation for
yes,
people.
Oh, absolutely.
And then here's another quick other thing.
Okay.
So I know some friends who, like yourself, who are going through it slowly. I know other people who in the first weekend watch the entire show.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on the Netflix model?
Not really. I mean, I like that it's sort of there for it has, you have the option to binge it. I think if I've had more time over the last week or so, I probably would have watched more of it. But at the same time, some shows that I've binge watched that have come on Netflix, I don't have the same memory of them as I do of something that I watched weekly. Like, using Breaking Bad as an example, that was a show, week to week I'd watch that, and I could remember episode to episode, this episode, that. But when I think back in Daredevil, and I watched that probably in like 2 days, 3 days, I couldn't tell you enough. I know there's certain key moments in it.
But it all blends together.
Yeah, it all blends together. Like, oh yeah, this episode 10 was so, the episode of this happened, like, I don't know, it all just kind of...
I mean, you hear a lot of TV critics and sites, if you listen to certain websites like TV podcasts and stuff like that, like they'll complain about the Netflix model because it makes it really hard to review a show.
Yeah.
Because it's just all up instantly. Or it makes it hard to continuously create content for it because after the first weekend, like, some people don't even care because they've already seen it all. But for our purposes, and just me, as somebody who likes to have like geeky conversations, it makes it hard to have those conversations because, like, even off air we were having a conversation with Christian, who's also from our channel, over a beer, and he was already on episode 6, but we'd only watched up through episode 3, and he didn't know what he could say and what he couldn't say because it all blended together for him because he watched it all at once, and it makes it really hard to have those conversations. And by the time you finish, I might not have finished. We can't discuss it, but by the time I finish, like, it's like, why are we still having that conversation? It was like, I don't like it for that. Like, I like the TV model. I wish Netflix would just release one a week. They tried it they had a sci-fi show with like the girl from iCarly, the like secondary, and they released one every like Tuesday or something. Like, I wish they would just do that because they still have a one-up on TV because then you can still go back and watch the other episodes. They're still there. Like, if you catch a show on cable, unless you have on demand or a DVR or Hulu, you can't just like go back and watch the other ones. Yeah,
like, can't be like 4 weeks in, be like, well, I've been hearing good things about the show. How can I catch up? Well, Netflix, it's all there.
Or maybe 2 a week even.
Yeah,
like,
that's
fair.
Know.
I think one day they might try shifting to that.
Well, like, you said about content, like, I was kind of keeping up with IGN the weekend it came out, and they were like pumping their episode reviews out, and then all of last week and even into this week, I think, they were still posting, like, reposting their reviews to kind of keeping content to go. And even before we recorded this, we were talking about where we were at, and like, why was episode 4? Did you watch this? Was this part? I don't remember this part. So we were just kind of like...
It makes it really difficult.
Yeah.
Just to talk about.
Whereas if you watch it from week to week, you're like, okay, well, I've seen last week's, and I know what this week happened, so I know I can't talk about everything that happened this week.
Yeah.
And it makes it a little bit easier for stuff like that. But
absolutely.
Well, even some show, whether or not you liked the season or not, I remember when Arrested Development came back, he came out and said, this really wasn't a season that should be binged. Like, I don't...
Right.
If you haven't binged it yet, don't watch it,
Yeah, I mean, if the creator gets really creative with how they frame the story of the season to where it should be binged, then that's one thing.
Yeah.
But part of the thing that I love about television, like for instance, a show that I love is Lost. And I don't necessarily love Lost because of where it went. I'm not really a fan of where the show went overall. But the reason I love that show is because it was 6 years of 22 weeks a year spending time with these characters and really getting to feel like, I mean, like, it was 6 years of my life where I was with these characters week after week after week after week. And that's part of the great thing that can happen with TV is you really get invested in the characters unlike you do in movies. But when you're binge watching a show and it is only, you know, maybe a weekend every year that you're spending, then it's almost like it's a movie at that point.
Yeah,
you're taking away that part of television.
Well, I'm done. I got, well, I remember, season 3 of Orange is the New Black came out, and I binged watched it. And like over the course of a weekend, we binged watched it.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, I guess we gotta wait
in April,
a year and a half to anything else of this. It doesn't have the same kind of draw as, which normally, it's a year between seasons, but you've got the end of the season, and it's really only like 6 months from the end of the season to the start of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not...
Typically a show ends in May and is back in August, September.
Yeah.
And it still feels like a long wait with Netflix. I mean, if you watch it, you literally have to wait a whole year. So I'm actually not a big fan of the binge. There are certain things I would do it for, but with a lot of these Netflix shows, I started that, like Orange is the New Black season 1, watched super quick.
Yeah.
And then I realized I don't really want to do that anymore. Like, I purposely draw it out because I just, that's how I prefer it. But any other thoughts?
That's pretty much it for me.
Cool.
Hopefully we'll do another one of these kind of just...
Yeah, we should do a wrap-up one. Absolutely. I'm excited to watch the rest of it. But what have you thought of Jessica Jones? Let us know in the comments. And what do you think? Should people just binge watch the entire thing as quickly as possible, or should it be laid out longer and treasured for the experience it is? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. And you can find both of us on Twitter. I'm at Rich Belson.
I'm at Stonks.
The channel is on Twitter at oabeer_official. You can also email us at overabeerofficial@gmail.com and find us on Facebook at facebook.com/overabeer. If you like what you're doing, if you like what we're doing and what you're watching, please like the channel or like the page, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share us with your friends, all that great stuff. But yeah, well, see you guys next time.
Yep.
Thanks.
Later.